my father, your uncle always said that make clear and concise decisions that you are 110% um, confident in. Take as much time as you need and don't look left, don't look right. Seek counsel, observe, see the market, know what you need, know where the market is going to, ask the people within that market where they're going to, and then also another thing is just get a mentor where you like, I want to be where that person is currently. Steps should I make to do so? And it's hard. Some people have parents who work in tech, and they're like, maybe they resent their parents. Maybe you can just go to their friend or like go to a networking event and just surround yourself with the lingo and the mindset of all the things that you want to aspire to be. And I would say that.
Is it a tech podcast? Well, technically, yes. This is the show for current and future techies who are curious about exploring the world of tech. You'll get to hear from exciting guests, highlighting the diversity of roles and careers within the space, how you can get started, but also the life that comes along with it before, during, and after. My name is Stella, and this is the Technically Yes podcast. Hello. Welcome back to the Technically Yes podcast. I'm your host, Stella, and I'm super excited about today's episode. Today, I am joined by none other than Mr. Naggenda himself, my cousin. My cousin's out of New York, and he's also in tech, which is really fun for us because I feel like we had this conversation and we were trying to figure out how many people in our family are in tech. And we are one of the few. So I'm super
The
excited
very
about
few.
having you here today. And yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the invite. I'm
Of
super
course.
excited, and I don't know what's going to happen. This is like my first podcast being in front of a cam. I usually do it like
Nice.
behind the scenes stuff. So this is my
Nice.
first one,
Awesome.
and I'm super
Well,
excited to do it with you.
yes,
So
me too. Me too. So let's jump right into it. Introduce yourself to my viewers. Who are you? What do you do? And yeah, let's start
that's
there.
awesome. Um, as Stella might have said, my name is Kawagga Naggenda. From the Naggenda clan, super big clan. Currently reside in New York, and I do a lot of things. So I'll just put in categories of like my 9 to 5, whatever pays the bills is I'm a software engineer for the US government, but also for the US government, I I am a public relations specialist as well. Currently changed roles within the military. I've been in that for about 10 years and counting. So it has been fun. In the military, that is, not the job itself. Usually in my free time, I do a lot of reading, building stuff, whether it's websites for friends or building better conversations or building Gundams or playing guitar or all the things, just a lot of things. And just
Okay, nice.
making myself better and better every day in whatever creative facet. So that's
Mm-hmm.
a snippet, I would say.
Nice. That's exciting. That's exciting. So tell me a little bit about your tech journey. So I
Mm,
came to find out a few years ago that you were working in tech as a front end developer. So is that something you
yeah.
still do today?
I I do more now. It has evolved into full stack as well
Okay.
as a bit of DevOps.
Okay, nice.
So that's pretty much I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, but better than master of one type of thing.
Nice.
So so I've been so front end. I like seeing things like look pretty and stuff like that, but at the same time, I love the guts, the engine as well,
Mhm.
and all the stuff that's in between. So when I my tech journey started, I would say a long time ago. Not
Okay.
specifically like software development, but
Mm.
just what tech is, what are some of the tools that make our lives better, or
Okay.
inventions and stuff.
Yeah.
So innovation and problem solving has always been near and dear to my heart, where I always ask myself the question, how can I better a situation that can bring maximum output, but also maximum joy?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was younger, growing up in Uganda, there was always things to figure out, like how are we able, like little technology, as I would say, would be a jerry can. How do you move water from point A to point B?
Mm-hmm.
But even to add on to that, how do you move the shortest distance? Or effectively, like if we're computer scientists, would think of Dijkstra's algorithm, all that crazy stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
the tech, I would say, I've always been fascinated of what tools make us better. But my journey is an unusual one because when I finished high school, I didn't go straight into tech or university per se to get a degree. I had to
Okay.
ask myself a question: what is the one thing that I want to do for the rest of my life that brings maximum joy and maximum output? So I
Yeah.
had to figure out, okay, what type of skills. I know I'm smart, whatever that means, whatever scale that is, but I wanted to improve
Mm-hmm.
on my people skills. So I decided to intern and then at a church, like the biggest churches there in Uganda at the time, and just understand how, because I love music as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
always ask myself the question, how does tech, the gizmos, um, get involved with music, like from like guitars to recording and stuff like that. And when I went into the guts of it, for example, Pro Tools and Logic, like software, I was like, wait, these are all ones and zeros. There's an input and then there's an output. So for about 4 years, but also there's the person element, because you can create a product, but if no one likes it and no one uses it, it ceases to have function or purpose per se. So working there enabled me to understand market for a particular problem to solve per se, which really helped. And after 4 years, I decided to come into to the United States for university. I think I was like 21, 22 years old. Like my friends were graduating from Uganda. They were like, "Oh, you didn't go to school yet? What?" Stuff like that. But my dad always told me that do the thing that gives you life. Don't do the thing just because someone else tells you to do it. So I had to think about it long and hard, because time is your best friend if you're making very important decisions, long lasting ones. So when I turned like 22, went to the US and I decided, okay, I want to do computer science because I realized that this is the trajectory of where the world is going, and I want to be headfirst into it. And because I love, problem solving, it was, a match made in heaven. My tech journey like from that. I also joined the military because I didn't want to like pay out of pocket as well, so it was a double exchange of go to the military, do your thing, but also learn on the job. So it's more of you're learning on the job at two fronts of school, but as well as in the I would say government organizations where they need to improve on their tech and you're the point person. So it was a lot of you understood the market from the government side as well as the day-to-day civilian side. And like after 4 years, I graduated. Thank God, because it was a lot. Balancing both. Uh, got a double major in computer science and mathematics, and my tech journey started when my mentor, who was on a startup, was like, "Hey, you want to get your feet wet in the civilian side? I'm doing a startup and you're going to do everything." So I did CI, CI/CD, DevOps, backend, front end, marketing, all the things. And it helped me realize, see like a product from inception to fruition and how it impacts communities. And just going, like, I worked there for like throughout my school years as well, but also just out the bat. And then afterwards, as I was still, because I was still at the startup, I worked with another company. It was with renters insurance as well, just understanding, real estate and housing market and how insurance affects based on what type of housing you have. So that was also another sphere of like understanding that market. And currently now I work with the US government in the health sector, and I oversee most of the applications that coordinators use. So that's pretty much my tech journey so far.
Yeah, nice. I mean, it seems like you've touched a lot of different areas of tech. So, my
hmm
first question to you, having touched so many different areas of technology, do you have any favorites? Like, what's your favorite part of tech?
My favorite part. My
Mm-hmm.
favorite part so far, I would say, I I would say financial.
Okay.
That's the because actually did an internship with a bank. I just saw like the back end of all how people like cash in checks, how they read them, all that stuff and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly fintech or financial like institutions of how cash flow works
Okay.
and how credit cards work, debit cards
Mm-hmm.
work, how like all those systems are integrated, and how money moves from one area to another, how you're able to check your balance, like how much you have in how much money you have, but also you're saying like, oh, current balance is this, but it's like remaining balance is something else, and understanding the two, how to like
Mm-hmm.
read all that stuff and how to display it for in form of like UI UX in order for a user to be like, oh, this makes sense. It also
Okay.
helped me bridge. It also helped me because I was doing a lot of front end. Ask myself the question, if I was a layperson, how can I effectively display information that even a 6-year-old can? Because it
Mm-hmm.
could be a lot of gibberish on a check, and you're like, what does a memo mean?
Yeah.
Those
Mm-hmm.
little things. And
Mm-hmm.
it just helped me understand money as a tool, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something that is built upon. So
Okay.
that's my favorite so far. Another one would
Okay.
be like cloud, because AWS is super cool and all that stuff and has a lot of things. So they were
Okay. Okay.
transitioning a lot to like a lot of AWS stuff as well
Mm-hmm.
during the internship.
Okay. So a mix of both front end and back end, I take it, would be
Absolutely.
sort of your favorites. Okay, nice. That's awesome. Now, you mentioned also that you were working for a startup. What was the
hmm
product? What were you guys working on?
The product was reducing inventory waste.
Okay.
So a lot of like companies, like big companies, like maybe like a shoe company like
Mm-hmm.
DSNW has like a lot of shoes and clearance and stuff, and they want to like throw out stuff. We redirect all that information based on the needs of whoever used the portal. So I'm going to do a shout out to the company because it's near and dear to me, and I'm also part of, I would say, the founders club of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's called GiveLink, and
Okay.
it helps with goods and services, and reduce. The mantra is pretty much reducing inventory waste. So like enabling people who don't have to have. So
Okay.
and during the pandemic, it was chaotic, where
Mm-hmm.
people were like on the side of Boys and Girls Club or like Salvation Army or Red Cross were using our portals to be able to get an inventory of like, we need these amount of socks. We see whether a supplier or wants to give extra socks so that their inventory is not hurt, but
Yeah.
also help these people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a win-win for both organizations involved, like you from United Way and so on and so forth. And it was a fun experience of just seeing whatever line of code I was writing was benefiting a person in need.
Okay.
So
Okay, nice.
that was the most exciting thing I've done so far,
Okay,
even though it
cool.
was the first tech company that I was part of.
Nice. Nice. That's awesome. And so I'm curious because working for the US government versus working for a startup, like what are the
Hmm.
biggest differences that you see there? Because startup is a very scrappy environment. And when I
Hmm.
picture government, I picture checks and balances until the day that you
Hmm.
die, things moving very slowly, but I could just be assuming. Am I right in my assumptions?
To a certain degree, yes. There are a lot of checks and balances because there's a lot of sensitive information involved.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of stakeholders that are involved as well, which can
Mm-hmm.
be like a life and death situation. So there's a lot of red tape, but it's necessary,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, because being in for so long, sometimes like you're a novice and you're like, why don't we just use, Angular and stuff like that and everything? Like, okay, they would say, I too would love to use that, like, make it Instagrammable, worthy,
Yeah.
masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more of, okay, let's work backwards. If we change, the functionality, does it break the system?
Mm-hmm.
And the older the system, per se, there is an advantage to it. Only few people can work on it, therefore
Mm-hmm.
it's less compromised. That's the more of the approach. But there's also
Okay.
the con of, because there are very few people and they're not a lot of people are not learning the technologies, for example, like Perl, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, ugh, we don't know anyone who knows Perl, so we're stuck. And
Okay.
therefore, so on and so forth. So there are pros and cons to it. But I say the
Mm-hmm.
pro as well is to learn an older language and understand why they wrote it in that sense. So it's
Okay.
also something to add on your utility belt,
Mm-hmm.
per se.
Mm-hmm.
Always a learning curve. So
For
I look
sure.
at I look at cons per se as opportunities to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So
Nice.
if it's, learning like Perl or, Microsoft like Basic, something like that. And like,
Mm-hmm.
or it's written in A or in B, and you're like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but it's like fascinating. Like, oh, I want to see why they use that language.
Mm-hmm.
Were they constrained due to the scenario? All those things. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. If you could pick one, what would you pick? Would you rather work in the government or rather work for like a startup, a more scrappy environment? Do you have a preference?
I love the preference of scrappiness.
Mm-hmm.
So I love working with startups
Okay.
because it gives you an opportunity to understand what your current limitations are, but
Mm-hmm.
how do you overcome those limitations, per
Mm-hmm.
se, that you've set upon yourself? Will you take another hour to understand documentation? We
Mm-hmm.
spend like another hour just reading through the code and stuff like that, and make notes and take notes, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Or in a startup, you like ask for help, like external help, like, hey, I'm trying to understand this. I don't know. But also, startups enable you to see products from inception to
Mm-hmm.
fruition, where you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you might be the UI UX designer, but next time you are the back end person,
Yeah.
and knowing where all those responsibilities or in where all those responsible parts are, you're
Mm-hmm.
able to make concise decisions based on the overall success of the product being made,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
versus pigeonholing, like, I'm just back end, they just told me to write an API, I'm like, oh, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
this API is going to enable this young mother that doesn't have shoes to be able to click on that button in order to get data for that.
Mm-hmm.
Changes perspective. So
Okay. Okay, nice. Nice. So for
mhm.
someone that is looking to do what you're doing today,
Mm.
what would your advice be to them?
My advice would be, your network, who actually, a lot of people use network, who you surround yourself with is a big determinant
Mm.
on what you want to do in life. So I can give an example of not what you surround yourself with, but also who you have in your ear, whether it's media, whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends. You have to make a conscious decision of, hey, if I want to be a software engineer, what are some things that I am doing now are enabling me to have the growth mindset of being a great software engineer? Now, knowing your why enables you to understand that. So for my case, just to reiterate, I had to take a very long time. It took me about 4 years of like not going to school, seeing my friends graduate. Like, I was the top of my school and I didn't go straight to university. Like people were wondering like, why are you doing this? I had to, my father, your uncle always said that make clear and concise decisions that you are 110% um, confident in. Take as much time as you need and don't look left, don't look right. Seek counsel, observe, see the market, know what you need, know where the market is going to. Ask the people within that market where they're going to. And then also another thing is just get a mentor where you like, I want to be where that person is currently. Steps should I make to do so? And it's hard. Like some people have parents who work in tech, and they're like, maybe they resent their parents. Maybe you can just go to their friend or like go to a networking event and just surround yourself with the lingo and the mindset of all the things that you want to aspire to be. And I would say that. But also another thing is soft skills are as important as hard skills. Soft skills are permanent, in a sense where if you get them, like being kind, like having a listening ear, having being able to receive positive feedback, it is the utmost importance for a growth mindset compared to like your fixed mindset would be like, oh, I don't need anyone else. Well, technically no man is an island and you will die by yourself because if you say I can do everything by yourself, well, you can be your own bank and you can be your own car. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
But you know, and it's always about who you surround yourself with. I would say get a mentor, read about the industry that you want to impact. And a lot of the times people will box in tech with, oh, I want to go to Google, Microsoft, whatever, stuff like that. But software is used everywhere, in cameras, in laptops, in streaming services. Like, and once you understand that the market is doing that, you'd be like, hey, I want to be able to improve on the quality of streaming decks. Cool. Which companies do that? And then also another thing would be build projects that you love doing. Just build projects that you love doing. Like, hey, I want to be able to create an AI where if I, write a number, it shows a display, like a picture form of what I've sent. Like if I write a 9, it displays it. If I draw like a cat form, it shows like a representation of a cat and an AI generated type of thing. Just exercise the different projects that you think can solve a problem, within a house. For example, you know, if you want to have semi-autonomous lighting system, like when you walk, everything flicks on, you want to use a Raspberry Pi, do it. See, document what happened, what went wrong, what went right. How do I, and that's the iteration process. By you doing that, you're doing CI/CD, like off the bat, and you're understanding, product development as well. So those are a lot of scenarios. It always starts with look for a problem that you're able to solve. that you would like to solve, but also learn the process of solving the problem. Solving the problem is easy. The learning process on how you solve that problem is the beautiful part.
Thanks for sharing that. That's really good. So
Yeah,
what I'm
absolutely.
hearing is essentially work on your own product and find the solution for that product on your own.
Hmm.
And I completely agree with that. I find there's so much learning and there's so much to be said that comes from working on your own product. And I mean, even if you're not launching it and putting it on the app store or what have you, I mean, just being able
Absolutely.
to come up with an idea, develop a wireframe, come up with like a pseudo MVP does so
Hmm.
much. And even just being able to dive in a little bit into the technological side of like, what does it look to build this out? What's needed? You mentioned AWS earlier, and a lot of people don't even understand the server capacity that's needed for a lot of the ideas that they have or the products that they're building
Absolutely.
out. And like, what
Hmm.
does that look like from a business standpoint, from a cost standpoint? As we know,
Yeah.
that is something that can add up really quickly. And it's also something that can, yeah, depending on even how you build it out, it can be a matter of are you spending a few $1,000s a month to like a few $100,000 if you're not building it out
Absolutely.
correctly. So even just understanding those small things, I think, can also take someone really far in the process. So yeah, thanks
Yeah,
for sharing.
absolutely.
I really
Hey,
appreciate
no
that.
problem. No
Now,
problem.
in terms of your challenges, because I'm sure this
Mm,
wasn't an easy road. I know you mentioned having to take some time off, seeing your friends graduate, things like that. But more in like recent years in your career, what are some of the
yeah.
challenges that you have faced, would you say?
I think the challenges that I've faced so far is not, I would say, not having. So the tech space is quite interesting where there's like this pigeonhole of like these certain people can only do it tech. Like
Hmm.
these other people can do it. They're like, oh, so it was very unique. It's very unique where they see like my name. I'm thankful for my dad for doing this. Like they see my name like Kawagga Naggenda and they're like, who's this guy? Like with
Hmm.
all this credentials. So it can be like a double-edged sword, like, oh, he might be just an African kid who just getting into tech and he might be a novice, but they see my resume and they're like, oh, he's more than just more than just what we think we are. So
Hmm.
I think the challenge that in a lot of tech spaces, and even whether whatever ethnicity or whatever color you are, would be perception versus perspective. And a lot of the times, people's perception creates the ultimate blind spot that um, I would say maybe a certain group of people, or even themselves, are like, they're not capable, or I'm not capable of doing this because of XYZ or how I grew up, or it's my skin color, or so on and so forth. Versus perspective gives like, hey, I have been able to do all these things so far. This is my work. I want to be not just the best, but the only and indispensable. Like I can be the master and commander of whatever job I go in. I'm not at the mercy of. So I think the challenge a lot of people have are being at the mercy of with their, I would say, not being able to know their unfair advantage. And a lot of people have a lot of unfair advantages. Like, for example, for a lot of ladies, they're great product designers because, for my case, I believe they're great product designers and product, managers because they're more attuned to the sensual aspect of the product. And I think like men, I'm not saying that it's, hardlined, but based on, biology, like we're more attuned to the logical aspect. Like if it's like quick decision making that we need this because of this, like we go, like no hard feelings, no emotions, but for the like decisions for the necessity of the group. So I would say the challenge that I had faced earlier on was not understanding my unfair advantage. of all the experiences that I had so far. Whether it's like, oh, going to a boarding school, and you're like, oh, I need to get my people skills up because I will die. You know, I will, you know, be, in solitude socially because I'm not, social enough to experience one another, and being able to, be indispensable in a social aspect. So a lot of the challenges I would say for myself early as well as other people is not knowing what their unfair advantages or what their unique aspect is in this world. Because not everyone can be Michael Jordan, not everyone can be Elon Musk. You can be the best version of you, and the only way to do that is to improve 1% every day. And every 1% by the end of the year, if you stick to it in a consistent basis, it will end up to 30, you'll be 37% better than you were a year ago. And your friends will see it, your family will see it. You see a change of mindset, change of perspective on the things that matter to you the most, and you'll be rewarded, whether it's monetary wise, whether it's health wise, whether it's mentally. It comes through in different aspects. So, yeah.
The focus is, right? You'll definitely see
hmm
those results one way or another. Now, in terms of your day-to-day challenges at
Mm.
work, what are some of the challenges you're facing there? And just like, yeah, your Monday to Friday.
During I would say Monday to Friday would be the challenge would be because I work for the government. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of things are slow. There's a lot of red tape, bureaucratic tendencies,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you're just slammed with a new project and they're like, oh, the turnaround has to be like a week or a week and a half because we need to display this certain feature. I'll be like, okay,
Mm.
so how would you like to what is the plan of action? What's the POA? Because I'm not going to dive down. Like, do we have a reference that we're trying to emulate? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes because the teams are extremely small
Yeah.
and we're doing multiple things at the same time, like
Mm-hmm.
there might be a fire, like production is down, you have to jump on. You're like working whole night, but you also have like this project and that project,
Mm-hmm.
which is I would say the challenge, but I look at it as a positive challenge because it is, like a startup. It's like a startup factor, but with bureaucratic tendencies. So it's more of like that. I don't see it as a negative thing. I see it more of a positive thing of understanding that it's an opportunity to grow in that aspect. Like
Right.
what to do and what not to do as well. So I would say my day to day, in that sense would be sometimes we have heavy sprint sessions that are just sprung up on us. And sometimes we have dead sessions of, we're waiting for the year's budget for the next fiscal year. So all products are on hold, all those things. So there are
Okay.
a lot of,
So it really just depends.
absolutely.
Fair enough. Fair enough. What would you say are some of the myths about what you do? I mean, I'm sure you
Mm,
probably have a lot considering you work for the government.
the myths.
Yeah. What are some of the most
Every,
common myths?
the common myths would be, oh, like everyone knows everyone,
Mm.
yet even a lot of people don't know each other, just like high and by, they just pass by, just kind of to a degree a cog in the wheel to a
Okay.
certain degree, unless you're like, out and about. Another thing would be because I work for the US government, also was with the US like military, they're like, oh, do you like go to war
Hmm.
or stuff like that? And I'm like, depends on what you mean by war. Like, waking up in the morning, yes.
Yeah.
Shooting, taking someone's life, no.
Okay.
Because no, a lot of the times, no. Sometimes it could be the mundane of like cooking. Someone might be cooking for their unit or stuff like that.
Mm.
Or it could just be, sitting in a meeting and just helping helping one understand a certain product that we're going to launch soon
Yeah.
to make something better.
Yeah.
Or it could be, a lot of a lot of, training and exercises and stuff like that that will help us not only in our jobs but like in our everyday living.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, working for the government
Yeah.
enables you to see that things are pretty awesome, but also pretty real.
Mm.
Like, not everything that you think you know is true,
Mm.
but sometimes you need to like dig down and do the homework and have a proper perspective on things
Mhm.
and make a concise decision on a lot of them. So, and also we're not dumb per se. Like, we're we're not like, oh, you went into the government because like maybe your mom and dad work there. No, some of us like worked really hard and we were extraordinary to them, and they were like they entrusted us with, you know, uh, protecting the interests of the for the people of the United States. So yeah,
Okay.
it's fun. It's a privilege to like work there as well, and it's not, it's not like we hold the keys to the kingdom per se.
Yeah.
We're as normal as you can get.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. That's
Hmm.
cool though. So, question for you as well. Now, because we talked a little bit about what's needed in order to, do what you do essentially.
Mm,
If you had to pick one thing, like a personality trait or something like that, what's the most important trait that a person needs to possess in order to do what you do?
resilience.
Okay. And why do you say that?
Resilience. I say resilience because life, the most unpredictable aspect in the world is life in of itself, is life itself,
Mm-hmm.
and life is highly unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one of my staff sergeants said this, um, no one rises to the occasion, everyone falls to the level of preparation that they have made. And preparing every single day, even in the mundane things, having risen like from making your bed to going to the gym at 5 in the morning to making that cup of coffee to not carrying your laptop on the couch and watching TV as it's a down day, those little things, to being there for a meeting that you scheduled in order to just, to have a conversation, the
Mm-hmm.
resilience aspect, or sleeping on time, or being able to like, I want to learn something and I'm going to give time to do this. Because time is the best tester for resilience, and how you prep for that enables will give you the result that you give it a lot of the time. For me, like me coming, like being born in the US, and then when you're 8, your mom passing away and your dad making, the actual decision of like, how am I going to raise my kids? Am I going to raise them in the United States, or am I going to raise them in Uganda where they will know where they come from, but also grow into, very good citizens? And and I get this resilience from my dad where making hard decisions in the moment where you don't understand to, see a great output, not thinking of yourself less, but for the benefit of your kids. And then, in my sense, being resilient of making a clear, concise decision that I want to do computer science in order to be effective in the market versus, I could have been a chemist. Like, I still remember the chemistry that I did like 10, 15 years ago, but understanding that, the resilience, like the everyday choices that you make to, to build that callus that enables you to endure in life, where you see life not as a burden, but more as an opportunity to explore. and to discover. So I would say resilience per se. And with resilience enables you to recalibrate all the things that you want to do or think you want to do. No problem.
Question, because when it comes to tech, there's
Mm-hmm.
obviously a lot of perks. There's a lot of benefits to being in the tech space.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like for you? What are some of the perks that you've experienced being in the tech space?
The greatest perk is to rub shoulders with people who are way ahead of me where I want to be. That's one from a people standpoint. I would say from a material standpoint, just being able to um, buy stuff that enhances my progress in just problem solving.
Mm.
That would be one, like whether it's traveling, whether it's being able to see family and not lose, time for it because it's all baked into it. In my job, being able to train with other, with my friends, to train with my friends and being able, and explore the world with them. Like I'm able to like carry work, like if I do have like a week, envoy that I have to do, I can actually carry work and work from there, which enables me to like do that, which is pretty fun. So I can explore the world globally and just it just adds to the nugget of what is this life jar that I'm constantly filling. Um, I would say that would be the perks. Yeah, I would say those are the main perks as well. I would say those are the main perks. And monetarily, being able to just, pay for a roof over my head and live comfortably for now. The only way is up. So, absolutely.
It's one of the fun things about tech. I mean, like you said, whether it's materialistic or whether it's socially, like there's so many different perks being in the space, but it's all about what you do with it as well, right? You can
Absolutely.
choose to do absolutely nothing. I know some people that have a really hard time even taking time off of work, or they have the
Hmm.
opportunity to work remote and they choose not to, things like that. So it really just depends on how you view it and what is something that, yeah, is a benefit to you or something that you even find useful, right? But yeah, there's definitely several different things within the space that can make it quite exciting. So I agree. So thank you so much for joining me.
I
I
appreciate it.
want to let our viewers know if they want to connect with you, how can they get in touch with you? Where can they
Absolutely.
find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. One,
Okay.
my LinkedIn is Kawagga N. That's my LinkedIn.
Okay.
They can also follow me on Twitter, which is now X. Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk, for that.
Mm-hmm.
um, Kawagga Naggenda. That's my handler, and you can find me on Instagram. So I have two Instagrams, one for photography, where I just shoot wherever I've visited, just do a
Mm-hmm.
snapshot of that. So the photography one would be nagzi.jpg,
Okay.
basic, and then my main one is underscore nagzi underscore. That's my handler.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
all the things. Shoot me
Okay.
shoot me a text, ask me any questions. I'm down to answer as much as I can and as appropriately as I can.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I will definitely drop all of your details in the show notes. So if anyone wants to get in touch with my cousin, you're more than welcome to reach out. He has a very unique journey into the space. I mean, coming from Africa, now living in the US, having had that computer science degree and now working for the government, as well as the freelance stuff you do on the side,
Hmm.
it can definitely serve as a great inspiration for someone else that's looking to be in the same position as you. So feel free to reach out to me if you guys have any questions. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you
We
so
tried
much.
recording this a couple of times. I had some tech issues, which is like, I mean, what else? So I'm really glad we were able to get this done. And I look forward
Absolutely.
to chatting with you again and seeing what's up with you in the future.
Absolutely. And yeah, me as well. Hopefully we can, meet up more and constantly and see
Yeah.
how it goes.
Definitely, definitely. Sounds good. Well, thanks again for tuning into the Technically Yes podcast. As always, I'm your host, Stella, and I'll chat with you guys next week. Take care. Oh. Thank you so much for tuning into the Technically Yes podcast. If you liked today's episode, rate this podcast 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you would like to get in touch with me, reach out to me on Instagram at the Tech Yes Pod, and find me and subscribe on YouTube by looking at the Technically Yes podcast. Thanks again, and chat to you guys next week.